The marble floors of Sterling and Associates gleamed under the crystal chandeliers as Madison Harper adjusted her pearls one last time before the board meeting. At 28, she was the youngest senior partner in the prestigious Manhattan law firm's history, a fact that the bronze nameplate on her corner office door proclaimed with quiet authority. Her Louboutin heels clicked confidently across the polished stone as she made her way to Conference Room A, where the firm's most important clients waited. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from. And if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. Madison, darling! Victoria Sterling, the firm's founding partner's daughter, air-kissed her cheek with practiced precision. You look absolutely radiant. That Hermes suit is divine on you. Madison smiled warmly, though something flickered behind her emerald eyes. Thank you, Victoria. You know how much I value your opinion. The conference room buzzed with the energy of success. Madison had built her reputation on an unprecedented streak of victories, transforming Sterling and Associates from a respected but modest firm into one of New York's most feared legal powerhouses. Her specialty in corporate acquisitions had generated over $200 million in revenue for the firm in just 3 years. Ladies and gentlemen, Madison addressed the room with the poise that had made her legendary in legal circles. I'm pleased to announce that we've successfully negotiated the Blackstone Industries merger. The deal closes Friday for $1.2 billion. Applause filled the room. James Morrison, the firm's managing partner and Victoria's fiancé, raised his champagne glass. To Madison Harper, the golden girl who never fails to deliver. The celebration continued as Madison graciously accepted congratulations from the assembled clients and partners. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, CEO of Rodriguez Pharmaceuticals, approached with genuine admiration. Madison, I cannot thank you enough. This merger will revolutionize cancer research. You've literally helped save lives today. It's what we do here, Dr. Rodriguez. Sterling and Associates doesn't just practice law, we create legacies. As the evening wound down, Madison retreated to her office, a sanctuary of success decorated with awards, photographs with politicians and celebrities, and a view of Central Park that cost the firm $50,000 a month. Her assistant, Kevin Walsh, knocked softly on the doorframe. Ms. Harper, your car is waiting downstairs. Also, your grandmother called again about Sunday dinner. Madison's expression softened. Tell Thomas I'll be down in 5 minutes. And Kevin, remind me to pick up those Italian cookies Nana loves from that bakery in Little Italy. Her penthouse apartment in Tribeca was a testament to her meteoric rise. The $30 million space featured floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Hudson River, original Picasso paintings, and furniture that graced the pages of Architectural Digest. Yet despite the opulence, Madison felt most at peace in the small reading nook, where she kept a worn photo of herself with her grandmother, both of them laughing over a shared ice cream cone. The next morning brought its usual rhythm of excellence. Madison's personal trainer arrived at 6 for their session in her private gym. Her chef prepared a breakfast of organic eggs Benedict, while she reviewed briefs for the day's depositions. Her stylist selected a charcoal Armani ensemble that conveyed authority without ostentation. At Sterling and Associates, Madison's morning was a symphony of legal brilliance. She demolished opposing counsel in a hostile takeover case, secured a favorable settlement for a Fortune 500 client, and mentored 3 junior associates on the finer points of contract negotiation. Her reputation as the firm's miracle worker seemed unshakable. Madison, you're absolutely unstoppable, gushed Samantha Chen, one of the junior partners. I heard Goldman Sachs tried to poach you again last week. Sterling and Associates is my family, Samantha. I could never leave the people who believed in me. The afternoon brought an unexpected visitor. Marcus Sterling, the firm's 82-year-old founder, rarely left his estate in the Hamptons anymore. But today he sat in Madison's office with an expression she couldn't quite read. Madison, my dear, you've exceeded every expectation I had when we hired you straight from Harvard Law Review. You took a chance on me when nobody else would, Mr. Sterling. I'll never forget that. Your grandmother would be so proud of what you've built here. She was quite a woman, wasn't she? Starting that little community center in Queens with nothing but determination and heart. Madison's throat tightened with emotion. She taught me that success means lifting others up, not just yourself. Wise woman, tell me, Madison, what do you see as your future here at Sterling and Associates? I see myself continuing to build this firm's legacy. Victoria and James have such innovative ideas for expansion, I'm excited to support their vision. Marcus nodded slowly, his weathered fingers drumming against his walking cane. Victoria and James, yes, they do have plans. That evening, Madison attended the annual Children's Hospital Charity Gala, an event where New York's elite gathered to see and be seen while ostensibly supporting a good cause. Her midnight blue Valentino gown turned heads as she moved through the crowd, but her focus remained on the cause itself. Ms. Harper approached Dr. Michael Patterson, the hospital's chief of pediatric surgery. Your foundation's donation will allow us to expand our pediatric cancer wing. 20 more beds means 20 more children we can help. Children deserve the best care possible, regardless of their family's financial situation. I'm honored to contribute. Victoria Sterling glided over, resplendent in diamonds that could fund a small country. Madison, you're such a saint. Always thinking of others. Coming from someone who organized this beautiful event, that means everything. As the evening progressed, Madison found herself on the terrace overlooking the city's glittering skyline. The cool October air carried the sounds of laughter and clinking glasses from inside, but she craved a moment of solitude. Magnificent view, isn't it? James Morrison joined her, his presence commanding even in casual conversation. Sometimes I think about my grandmother's little apartment in Queens. She had a fire escape that looked out over a parking lot, but she always said it was the most beautiful view in the world because it represented hope. Your grandmother sounds like she was quite the philosopher. She was everything to me after my parents died, worked 3 jobs to put me through school, never complained, never gave up. Everything I am is because of her sacrifices. James studied her profile in the moonlight. You know, Madison, success can be lonely. It's important to surround yourself with people who truly understand your worth. I've been blessed with incredible colleagues and friends. I never feel alone. Good, that's very good. The next few days passed in Madison's typical whirlwind of professional triumph. She closed 2 major deals, was featured on the cover of Legal Weekly as the face of modern corporate law, and received an invitation to speak at Harvard Law School's commencement ceremony. Friday afternoon brought the Blackstone Industries closing, a deal that would cement Madison's reputation as one of the most formidable corporate attorneys on the East Coast. The conference room was packed with executives, lawyers, and media representatives documenting this historic merger. Ladies and gentlemen, Madison announced with quiet confidence, I'm pleased to declare the Blackstone Industries acquisition officially complete. This partnership will create over 10,000 new jobs and revolutionize sustainable technology. The room erupted in applause as champagne flowed and cameras flashed. Madison shook hands with executives, posed for photographs, and graciously accepted congratulations from competitors who couldn't hide their admiration. As the celebration continued around her, Madison felt a profound sense of accomplishment. She had built something extraordinary from nothing, honoring her grandmother's memory while creating a legacy that would endure. The little girl who had once lived in a cramped Queens apartment was now commanding respect in Manhattan's most exclusive circles. Victoria Sterling approached with her usual radiant smile, James Morrison at her side. Madison, this calls for something special. Why don't you join us for dinner tomorrow night? We have something exciting to discuss. I'd love that. Should I bring anything? Just yourself, darling. Just yourself. That evening, Madison returned to her penthouse feeling deeply satisfied with the trajectory of her life. Everything she had worked for, every sacrifice she had made, had led to this moment of unparalleled success. She stood at her windows, looking out over the city that had embraced her ambition and rewarded her dedication. She had no idea that by Sunday night, everything she believed about her perfect world would lie in ruins. Madison stood in the rain outside her Tribeca penthouse at midnight, watching through the floor-to-ceiling windows as strangers in black suits methodically dismantled her life. They moved with practiced efficiency, wrapping her Picasso paintings in protective cloth and loading furniture onto a waiting truck. Her sanctuary, the space that had represented everything she'd achieved, was being stripped bare. The doorman, Miguel Santos, approached her cautiously. "Miss Harper, I'm so sorry. They had official paperwork. Said you were behind on maintenance fees and the building was executing a lien. I tried calling you, but—" "It's not your fault, Miguel." Madison's voice sounded hollow even to herself. "How long have they been here?" "A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel." Now, back to where we left off. Since about 10 o'clock, they knew exactly where everything was, like they'd been planning this for weeks. Through the windows, Madison watched a woman she didn't recognize supervise the removal of her grandmother's antique writing desk, the one piece of furniture she'd specifically requested to keep from the old Queen's apartment. The woman handled it carelessly, gesturing for the movers to stack boxes on top of the delicate wood surface. Madison's phone buzzed with a call from Kevin Walsh. "Miss Harper, where are you? I went to your apartment like you asked, but the building manager said you'd been evicted for non-payment." "That can't be right. I handle your automatic payments myself." "Kevin, I need you to go home and forget you ever worked for me. Don't come to the office Monday." "What? Miss Harper, I don't understand. What's happening?" Before Madison could respond, a black sedan pulled up to the building's entrance. Victoria Sterling emerged, her blonde hair perfectly styled despite the late hour. She wore a satisfied smile as she surveyed the moving operation, speaking animatedly into her phone. Madison ducked behind a parked car and activated her phone's recording function, creeping close enough to hear Victoria's conversation. "Duck complete by tomorrow morning. Yes, the apartment contents are being transferred to the storage facility in Queens. No, she won't be able to access anything." Victoria laughed, a sound that chilled Madison to her core. "James, darling, she actually thought she owned that place. The deed has been in the firm's name since day one. We've been letting her live there as a company benefit." Madison felt the world tilt. Her penthouse, her refuge, her symbol of success, had never actually belonged to her. "The bank accounts are frozen as of midnight," Victoria continued. "Credit cards canceled. Her law license suspension paperwork will be filed first thing Monday morning. By the time she realizes what's happening, she'll have no resources to fight us." A new voice crackled through Victoria's phone speaker, though Madison couldn't make out the words. "Of course the clients don't know yet. We'll tell them tomorrow that Madison had a nervous breakdown and had to take indefinite medical leave. James will personally handle their transitions to ensure continuity of service." Victoria's laugh grew colder. "They'll thank us for protecting them from an unstable attorney." Madison's hands shook as she continued recording. Through the building's lobby windows, she watched the movers carry out the hospital photographs, images of children whose lives had been saved by the surgeries her charitable donations had funded. They handled the frames roughly, and she heard the distant sound of glass breaking. "The Sunday dinner plan is perfect," Victoria was saying. "We'll offer her a generous severance package, $50,000, and a positive reference letter in exchange for her signature on a non-disclosure agreement. She'll be so grateful for our mercy that she won't question the details." Another pause as the person on the phone responded. "No, James, she won't suspect anything. Madison Harper is brilliant with corporate law, but she's naive about human nature. She actually believes people are fundamentally good. It's almost touching how completely she trusted us." Madison bit her lip to keep from crying out. The casual cruelty in Victoria's voice, the dismissive way she spoke about years of friendship and partnership, cut deeper than any legal maneuvering. "The merger documents are already prepared," Victoria continued. "Sterling and Morrison Legal Group will be operational by Christmas. Our combined client list will give us control over 80% of corporate legal work in Manhattan." Madison's contributions over the past 3 years have built the perfect foundation for our empire. A luxury SUV pulled up behind Victoria's sedan. James Morrison stepped out, moving with the confidence of someone whose plan was proceeding flawlessly. He kissed Victoria on the cheek and gestured toward Madison's building with obvious satisfaction. Madison strained to hear their conversation as they moved closer to the building entrance. "The Rodriguez merger?" James asked. "Transferred to Morrison Legal this afternoon." Elena Rodriguez was initially concerned, but I explained that Madison had specifically requested the transition to ensure better service during her medical absence. She was very understanding. And the Blackstone Industries follow-up contracts? Already reassigned to our corporate team. The clients trust our recommendations. They have no reason to question Madison's sudden departure, especially when we're offering such seamless transitions. Madison felt physically sick. Her life's work, every client relationship she'd built, every trust she'd earned, was being systematically transferred to the people who had betrayed her. What about her personal accounts? James inquired. Completely frozen. The IRS investigation I reported should keep her tied up for months, even if she manages to find legal representation. By then, our consolidation will be complete and irreversible. You reported her to the IRS? For tax evasion and unreported income. Completely fabricated, of course, but it will take her months to prove her innocence. Meanwhile, she'll be financially paralyzed and professionally destroyed. Madison's recording captured every word as James and Victoria laughed about the thoroughness of their destruction of her life. They spoke about her as if she were already dead, a problem solved, an obstacle removed. The beauty of it, Victoria said, is that she did all the work for us. 3 years of building client relationships, establishing precedents, creating the reputation that we're now inheriting. Madison Harper made Sterling & Associates a powerhouse, and now Sterling & Morrison will reap every benefit. What if she doesn't sign the NDA tomorrow night? Then we release the fabricated evidence of her mental breakdown to the legal community. Either way, she'll never practice law in New York again. Probably nowhere else either, once word spreads. As if summoned by their conversation, Madison's phone rang with a call from Dr. Elena Rodriguez. Madison answered, her voice carefully controlled. Dr. Rodriguez, it's very late. Madison, I just received the most disturbing call from Victoria Sterling. She said you've been hospitalized for a nervous breakdown and that all your cases are being transferred immediately. She mentioned something about financial irregularities in your accounts. Madison, please tell me this isn't true. Madison watched Victoria and James through the rain, seeing them clearly for the first time. Dr. Rodriguez, I need you to listen very carefully. Everything Victoria Sterling told you is a lie. What do you mean? I mean that tomorrow morning you need to call your own attorney and review every document Sterling & Associates has prepared for your merger. Don't sign anything else without independent legal counsel. Madison, you're scaring me. What's really going on? I'm about to disappear, Dr. Rodriguez. When you hear stories about my mental breakdown or financial crimes, remember this conversation. Remember that I warned you. After hanging up, Madison watched Victoria and James enter her building to personally oversee the final stages of the theft. They moved through her former home like conquerors, claiming spoils of war, pointing at specific items, and giving directions to the movers. Madison's phone buzzed with a text from Rachel Donovan. Emergency meeting. Same cafe. Come now. 20 minutes later, Madison sat across from Rachel in the nearly empty coffee shop, still dripping from the rain. Rachel took one look at her and ordered 2 double espressos. They moved faster than I expected, Rachel said grimly. But this is actually good news. Good news. They've stolen my apartment, my money, my cases, my entire life. They've also just committed multiple felonies in a single night. Financial fraud, identity theft, filing false government reports. Madison, they're not just stealing from you, they're destroying evidence of their own crimes. Madison stared at Rachel through exhausted eyes. What do you mean? By moving so aggressively, they've exposed their entire operation. But more importantly, they've made a critical error. They think you're helpless. They think you'll show up tomorrow night grateful for whatever scraps they offer. Aren't I helpless? They've taken everything. Rachel smiled for the first time since Madison had met her. Madison, you're about to learn the difference between having everything and being everything. Tomorrow night, when you don't show up for their little dinner theater, Victoria Sterling and James Morrison are going to realize they've made a terrible mistake. What mistake? They've just declared war on someone who has nothing left to lose. And Madison Harper, that's when you become the most dangerous person in the room. As dawn broke over Manhattan, Madison Harper sat in an all-night diner in Queens, watching the sunrise illuminate the city where she'd once believed she belonged. Her old life was gone, erased as if it had never existed. But something else was being born in its place. Something harder and more determined than the naive young woman who had trusted her colleagues. The question was no longer whether she could survive their betrayal. The question was whether they could survive what she was about to become. Sunday morning arrived with a call that shattered Madison's remaining illusions about the depth of Victoria and James's betrayal. Her phone, now her only remaining possession besides the clothes she wore, rang with an unknown number at 7 a.m. Madison Harper? The voice belonged to Detective Sarah Chen of the NYPD Financial Crimes Unit. I need you to come to the precinct immediately for questioning regarding allegations of embezzlement and tax evasion. Madison's blood ran cold. Detective, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Ma'am, we have sworn affidavits from multiple witnesses at Sterling & Associates claiming you've been systematically stealing client funds. I suggest you bring an attorney. I am an attorney. Not anymore, according to the emergency suspension filed with the New York State Bar this morning. Ma'am, you need to turn yourself in by noon, or we'll issue a warrant for your arrest. After hanging up, Madison stared at Rachel across the diner booth, where they'd spent the night planning their next move. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows on both their faces, emphasizing the gravity of their situation. They filed criminal charges, Madison whispered. Detective Chen said there are sworn affidavits from Sterling and Associates employees. Rachel's expression hardened. Which employees? Kevin Walsh worships you. Samantha Chen respects you. Who would sign false statements? Madison's phone buzzed with a text from Kevin. Ms. Harper, men in suits came to my apartment at 6 a.m. with legal papers. They said if I didn't sign a statement about your erratic behavior and suspicious financial transactions, I'd be charged as an accessory. I'm so sorry, I was scared. Please forgive me. Another text arrived from Samantha Chen. Madison, I don't know what's happening, but Victoria Sterling threatened to have me disbarred if I didn't confirm that you'd been acting unstable lately. She said they had evidence you were stealing, and that I could either cooperate or go down with you. I had to think about my family. I'm sorry. Madison felt her heart breaking as more texts arrived from junior associates, paralegals, and support staff, all apologizing for signing statements they didn't believe but couldn't afford to refuse. They systematically terrorized everyone who might defend you, Rachel observed. Classic intimidation tactics. But Madison, this actually proves how scared they are. They wouldn't go to these extremes unless they were desperate. At 10 a.m., Madison's remaining world collapsed further when her phone rang with a call from the administrator at Mercy General Hospital. Ms. Harper, I'm calling about your grandmother's memorial fund. We've received notice from Sterling and Associates that the charitable account has been frozen due to irregularities in its management. They're demanding a full audit and recovery of all donated funds. Madison's grandmother's memorial fund, the children's cancer wing that had been her most sacred project, was now being weaponized against her. Dr. Patterson, that fund has helped save dozens of children's lives. You can't seriously be considering. Ms. Harper, we have no choice. If there are questions about the fund's legitimacy, we have to protect the hospital from potential liability. I'm sorry, but we're suspending all programs funded by your foundation effective immediately. As Madison hung up, she realized Victoria and James weren't just destroying her professional life. They were attacking every good thing she'd ever accomplished, every life she'd tried to improve. Rachel slid a newspaper across the table. The New York Legal Tribune's Sunday edition featured a front-page story, Rising Star Attorney Under Investigation for Financial Crimes. The article, clearly fed by Victoria Sterling's public relations team, painted Madison as a troubled lawyer whose rapid success had gone to her head. Anonymous sources described her as increasingly erratic and obsessed with money and status. The piece included a quote from James Morrison expressing deep sadness about his colleague's apparent breakdown. "We trusted Madison with our most important clients," Morrison was quoted as saying. Her betrayal of that trust has shocked everyone who believed in her potential. Madison's phone rang constantly now, reporters seeking comment, former clients expressing concern, colleagues distancing themselves from the scandal. Each call felt like another nail in the coffin of her reputation. By noon, Madison sat in a police station interrogation room, facing Detective Chen and Assistant District Attorney Marcus Thompson. Without an attorney, no lawyer in the city would represent someone accused of stealing from Sterling and Associates. Madison was forced to defend herself. Ms. Harper, Detective Chen began, we have documentation showing unusual transfer patterns from client accounts during cases you handled personally. Large sums moving to offshore entities. How do you explain this? Madison studied the bank records spread across the table. The transactions were real, but the account numbers had been manipulated to suggest she was the beneficiary rather than Victoria and James. Detective, those transfers were authorized by senior partners Victoria Sterling and James Morrison. I have email authorizations for every single transaction. ADA Thompson leaned forward. Then you won't mind providing access to your email accounts and financial records so we can verify your claims. My email account has been suspended by Sterling and Associates. My personal banking records were frozen yesterday on what I now understand were false pretenses. How convenient, Thompson replied with obvious skepticism. So you're claiming that your accusers have systematically destroyed all evidence that might support your innocence? Yes, that's exactly what I'm claiming. Detective Chen exchanged glances with the prosecutor. Ms. Harper, do you understand how that sounds? You're suggesting that one of New York's most respected law firms has orchestrated an elaborate frame job against a junior partner. I'm not a junior partner. I was a senior partner who generated over $200 million in revenue for that firm. According to Sterling and Associates' partnership agreement, Thompson consulted his notes, you were an associate with a profit-sharing arrangement. You were never actually made a partner. Madison's world shifted again. Even her partnership, her most basic professional identity, had been a lie. That's impossible. I have a partnership agreement. I have documentation. Documentation that you can't access because your accounts are suspended, Detective Chen noted. Ms. Harper, we have sworn statements from 17 employees at Sterling and Associates. We have bank records showing suspicious transactions. We have testimony from clients who say you pressured them into questionable financial arrangements. What we don't have is any evidence supporting your claims of innocence. The interrogation continued for 3 hours. By the end, Madison understood that Victoria and James had constructed a perfect trap. Every piece of evidence that might exonerate her had been classified as firm property and made inaccessible. Every witness who might support her had been intimidated into silence or complicity. At 4 p.m., Madison was released pending further investigation, but the message was clear. Formal charges were inevitable. Outside the police station, Rachel waited with grim news. It's worse than we thought, Rachel said as they walked toward the subway. While you were being interrogated, Victoria Sterling held a press conference. She announced that Sterling and Associates is merging with Morrison Legal Group to better serve clients during this difficult transition. The merger is effective immediately. They couldn't wait until tomorrow night's dinner theater, Madison realized. They moved up their timeline because they were afraid I might find a way to stop them. Madison, there's something else. I managed to contact 3 of your former clients. Dr. Rodriguez, the pharmaceutical company CEO, told me something interesting. Victoria Sterling called her this morning, claiming that you had specifically requested all your cases be transferred because you were entering a psychiatric facility. Madison stopped walking. A psychiatric facility? That's their exit strategy. If the criminal charges don't stick, they'll claim you had a complete mental breakdown and voluntarily committed yourself for treatment. Either way, you disappear from the legal profession forever. As they descended into the subway station, Madison caught her reflection in a window. The confident, polished attorney who had stood in the Sterling and Associates conference room just days ago was gone. In her place stood a woman with haunted eyes and borrowed clothes, carrying nothing but a phone and the devastating knowledge of how completely she'd been destroyed. Rachel, tell me honestly, is there any way back from this? Can I ever practice law again? Can I ever rebuild what they've taken? Rachel studied her for a long moment. Not as Madison Harper. That person is finished. Victoria Sterling and James Morrison made sure of that. Then what do I do? You become someone new, someone they can't predict, can't control, and can't destroy. Rachel's eyes gleamed with dangerous possibility. Madison Harper was naive enough to trust people who smiled while stabbing her in the back. but the woman you're becoming won't make that mistake again. As their train pulled into the station, Madison felt the last vestiges of her old self crumbling away. Tomorrow, Victoria Sterling and James Morrison would celebrate their victory at an expensive restaurant, toasting the successful elimination of the only person who could have stopped their empire. They had no idea that in destroying Madison Harper, they had created something far more dangerous, someone with absolutely nothing left to lose and everything to gain. 3 months after her world collapsed, Madison Harper ceased to exist. The woman who now sat in a cramped studio apartment in Newark, New Jersey, had chopped off her signature blonde hair and dyed it auburn. Contact lenses had replaced her distinctive emerald eyes with plain brown ones. The designer suits were gone, replaced by thrift store jeans and oversized sweaters. Even her voice had changed, the confident courtroom projection replaced by a softer, more careful tone. Her new identity was Emma Rodriguez, a name carefully chosen to honor the one client who had believed her warnings. Using Rachel Donovan's underground network of former legal professionals destroyed by corrupt firms, Madison had acquired flawless documentation supporting her new life. The apartment was spartanly furnished, a mattress on the floor, a folding table, 2 plastic chairs, and a wall covered with photographs, documents, and red string connecting various points of evidence. It looked like the workspace of someone obsessed, which was exactly what Madison had become. Rachel entered the apartment carrying Chinese takeout and a laptop bag. Over the past 3 months, she had become Madison's partner in planning what they now called the Reckoning. Sterling and Morrison just announced their 3rd major acquisition, Rachel reported, setting down the food. They've absorbed Peterson and Associates, making them the largest corporate law firm on the East Coast. Madison studied the new information without emotion. Client list? 47 Fortune 500 companies, including 3 that used to be yours. They're using your case precedents and client relationships to expand faster than anyone thought possible. And Victoria's net worth? Crossed $500 million last month. James Morrison hit $300 million. They're not just stealing from individual lawyers anymore. They're systematically destroying smaller firms and absorbing their assets. Madison pinned the new data to her evidence wall. The Red String network now resembled a spider web, connecting dozens of victims to the Sterling and Morrison empire. How many other lawyers have they destroyed this way? 12 that we can prove. Probably twice that many who were too scared or broken to come forward. Madison, they're not just running a law firm, they're operating a criminal enterprise. For the first time in weeks, Madison smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. Perfect. Criminal enterprises can be brought down using RICO statutes. Federal prosecution, asset forfeiture, the works. Quote, "That's what I've been building toward," Rachel agreed, "but we need more than evidence. We need to hit them where it really hurts." Madison turned to face her partner. Over the past 3 months, their relationship had evolved from desperate alliance to something resembling friendship. Rachel's methodical approach to revenge had taught Madison patience and strategic thinking. What do you mean? Victoria Sterling and James Morrison care about 3 things: money, power, and reputation. We've been focusing on exposing their crimes, but that's not enough. We need to destroy everything they've built while they watch helplessly. Madison nodded slowly. Go on. I've been researching their client base. Sterling and Morrison's rapid expansion has made them vulnerable. They're handling so many major deals that if even a few clients simultaneously withdrew their business, the firm would collapse under its own weight, Madison finished. But why would clients leave? They don't know about the criminal activity. Rachel opened her laptop and pulled up a series of financial documents. Because, my dear Emma Rodriguez, we're going to give them better options. Over the next hour, Rachel outlined a plan so audacious that Madison initially thought her partner had lost her mind. You want us to start our own law firm? Not just any law firm. We're going to create the most innovative, client-focused legal practice in the country. We'll offer services that Sterling and Morrison can't match and charge rates they can't compete with. Rachel, we have no money, no office, no staff, and I'm under criminal investigation. How exactly do you propose we launch a competing firm? Rachel's smile was triumphant. With this, She produced a thick folder from her laptop bag. Inside were contracts, financial statements, and correspondence Madison had never seen before. What am I looking at? Your severance package from Sterling and Associates, the real one. Madison's hands trembled as she read the documents. According to the papers, she was entitled to $12 million in partnership distributions, plus ongoing royalties from cases she had originated. This is impossible. They told me I was never actually a partner. You weren't a partner in name, but you were a partner in practice. These contracts were filed with the New York State Department of Commerce. They're legally binding, and Sterling and Associates has been in violation for 3 months. Quote, "Why didn't you show me this before? Because 3 months ago you would have tried to fight them in court using their own system. You would have hired a lawyer, filed motions, played by their rules, and you would have lost because they control the system." Madison studied the documents more carefully. The implications were staggering. If this is enforceable, it is. But more importantly, it's leverage. Victoria Sterling and James Morrison built their empire using money that legally belongs to you. When we're ready to move, we can force them to choose between paying you what they owe or facing criminal prosecution for theft. $12 million would be enough to start a competing firm. It would be enough to start 10 competing firms. But Madison, I don't think you understand the full scope of what we're planning. Rachel moved to the evidence wall and pointed to specific photographs and documents. Every lawyer they've destroyed over the past 5 years, every client they've manipulated, every competitor they've eliminated through fraud and intimidation. We're not just going after Victoria and James. We're going to build a network that makes their empire look like a corner bodega. Madison felt something shifting inside her chest, a sensation she hadn't experienced since her grandmother's death. It was hope, but darker and more determined than anything she'd felt before. How? We start by recruiting the lawyers they've destroyed. 12 brilliant legal minds who have personal reasons to see Sterling and Morrison fail. We offer them partnership in a firm that values integrity over profit. They'll never trust us. They've been burned too badly. They'll trust Emma Rodriguez, the mysterious new attorney who somehow has both the resources and the knowledge to take down the people who destroyed their lives. Madison walked to the window overlooking Newark's industrial landscape. 3 months ago, this view would have depressed her. Now it represented the possibility, a place where she could build something new without the constraints of Manhattan's legal establishment. There's something else, Rachel continued. I've been in contact with federal investigators who've been watching Sterling and Morrison for months. They suspect RICO violations but haven't been able to build a case because all the victims were too scared to testify. And now? Now they have us. 2 witnesses who not only survived their intimidation tactics but gathered evidence while planning our own response. The FBI is very interested in what we've learned. Madison turned back to face Rachel. When do we start? Tomorrow. I've already arranged our first meeting with a commercial real estate agent in downtown Boston. We're going to establish Rodriguez and Associates in a city where Sterling and Morrison has minimal influence. Why Boston? Because half their biggest clients have corporate headquarters there. When we're ready to make our move, we'll be positioned to offer those clients better service at competitive rates. Madison felt the final pieces of her old identity falling away. Madison Harper had been naive, trusting, and ultimately weak. But Emma Rodriguez would be something different. Someone who understood that in a world without justice, you had to create your own. Rachel, there's one thing I need to know. When this is over, when we've destroyed everything they built and taken everything they love, will that be enough? Will it fill the hole they created when they stole my life? Rachel was quiet for a long moment. Madison, revenge isn't about filling holes. It's about making sure the people who hurt you understand exactly what they lost when they chose to make you their enemy. That night, as Madison packed her few belongings for the move to Boston, she caught her reflection in the apartment's cracked mirror. The woman looking back at her bore no resemblance to the idealistic young attorney who had once believed in justice and fairness. Emma Rodriguez had been forged in betrayal and tempered by rage. She would be everything Madison Harper had been too naive to become: ruthless, strategic, and absolutely unstoppable. Victoria Sterling and James Morrison had laughed when Madison Harper left with nothing. They wouldn't be laughing when Emma Rodriguez came back to take everything. 18 months after Madison Harper's death, Rodriguez and Associates occupied 3 floors of a gleaming Boston skyscraper overlooking the harbor. The firm's rapid ascent had become the talk of the legal community, a mysterious new practice that seemed to materialize overnight with unlimited resources and an uncanny ability to poach high-profile clients from established firms. Emma Rodriguez stood in her corner office, reviewing contracts that would have been unimaginable during her previous life. Her transformation was complete. Auburn hair styled in a sharp bob, designer glasses that gave her an intellectual edge, and a wardrobe that projected authority without ostentation. She had become someone entirely new, someone who understood power in ways Madison Harper never could. The Morrison account just signed, announced Dr. Patricia Williams Rodriguez and Associates managing partner. Patricia had been one of Sterling and Morrison's victims, a brilliant intellectual property attorney whose patent law practice had been destroyed through fabricated ethics violations. Now she ran day-to-day operations for what had become New England's most innovative legal firm. Total value? Emma asked, though she already knew the answer. $47 million over 3 years. Morrison Electronics is transferring all their corporate legal work from Sterling and Morrison effective immediately. Emma smiled. Morrison Electronics, James Morrison's family company and his father's legacy, had just betrayed him for better service and lower rates. The irony was exquisite. Through her office windows, Emma could see the construction crews working on the building directly across the street. Rodriguez and Associates was expanding again, having outgrown their original space in less than a year. The firm now employed 37 attorneys, 15 paralegals, and a support staff that rivaled firms 3 times their age. "How's the Philadelphia office coming along?" Emma inquired. Thomas Brennan has secured the Whitmore Industries contract. That's the 3rd Fortune 500 company we've pulled from Sterling and Morrison this quarter. Thomas Brennan, formerly a senior partner at Philadelphia's most prestigious firm until Sterling and Morrison had orchestrated his downfall through fraudulent conflict of interest charges. He now ran Rodriguez and Associates' expansion into the Mid-Atlantic region with a personal vendetta that matched Emma's own. The intercom buzzed with a call from Rachel Donovan, who now served as the firm's Director of Strategic Initiatives, a title that barely concealed her role as chief architect of their war against Sterling and Morrison. "Emma, we need to talk. Conference room B, bring the Morrison file." Emma found Rachel surrounded by laptop screens, financial reports, and surveillance photographs. Over the past 18 months, Rachel had transformed from a bitter ex-lawyer into something resembling a corporate spy, using methods that skirted the edges of legality. "What do you have?" "Victoria Sterling is in trouble, real trouble." Rachel pulled up a series of financial documents on her laptop. The firm's expansion was too aggressive. They've been using client funds to finance acquisitions, thinking they could replace the money before anyone noticed. Emma studied the numbers. Sterling and Morrison's books showed a healthy profit margin, but Rachel's analysis revealed something different. They're operating a Ponzi scheme. Essentially, they steal from client A to pay expenses, then steal from client B to replace client A's money. It works as long as new money keeps coming in faster than old money goes out. But we've been cutting off their new money sources. Exactly. Rodriguez and Associates has captured 8 of their major clients in the past 6 months. Without that revenue, they can't maintain the shell game. Emma felt a familiar surge of satisfaction. How long before it collapses? 3 months, maybe less. But Emma, that's not the best part. Rachel's smile was predatory. "I've been monitoring their communications. Victoria and James are planning something desperate." She pulled up intercepted emails and recorded phone conversations. Evidence that would have horrified Madison Harper, but barely registered with Emma Rodriguez. They're going to frame their former clients for the missing money, claim that Rodriguez and Associates has been feeding them inside information to facilitate embezzlement schemes. Can they make that stick? Not legally. But they don't need legal proof. They just need enough doubt to destroy our reputation and send clients running back to them. Emma walked to the window, watching traffic move through Boston's financial district. 18 months ago, she would have been terrified by such accusations. Now they simply represented another obstacle to overcome. When are they planning to move? Next week. Victoria scheduled a press conference to announce their, quote, discovery of the embezzlement scheme. James has already briefed the FBI on what they claim to have found. The same FBI agents who've been building a RICO case against them? Different division. White-collar crime unit that doesn't communicate with organized crime investigators. Classic bureaucratic blindness. Emma turned back to Rachel. Then we accelerate our timeline. Over the next 3 hours, Emma made a series of phone calls that would have been impossible for Madison Harper. Her network now included federal prosecutors, investigative journalists, banking regulators, and state bar association officials, all carefully cultivated over 18 months of strategic relationship building. The first call went to Assistant U.S. Attorney Jennifer Walsh in Manhattan, who had been quietly building a case against Sterling and Morrison for months. Jennifer, it's Emma Rodriguez. I have information about imminent witness tampering and evidence destruction that requires immediate action. What kind of information? The kind that requires a federal task force and simultaneous raids on 6 locations in 3 states. How quickly can you move? The second call went to David Chen, investigative reporter for the Wall Street Journal, who had been tracking corporate corruption in the legal industry. David, remember that source I mentioned who could expose the Sterling and Morrison conspiracy? She's ready to go on the record. But the story needs to break tomorrow morning, before they can spin their narrative. By evening, Emma had orchestrated a coordinated response that would have impressed military strategists. Federal investigators would raid Sterling and Morrison offices at dawn, seizing financial records before they could be destroyed. Simultaneously, the Wall Street Journal would publish a front-page exposé detailing the firm's criminal activities, based on 18 months of evidence gathered by Rodriguez and associates. But Emma wasn't finished. Her final call went to Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the pharmaceutical CEO who had trusted Madison Harper's warning 18 months earlier. Dr. Rodriguez, this is Emma Rodriguez. No relation, despite the name. I believe you once knew an attorney named Madison Harper. Yes, though I heard she had some kind of breakdown and disappeared. Such a tragedy. Dr. Rodriguez, would you be interested in learning the truth about what really happened to Madison Harper? And more importantly, would you be willing to help ensure justice for what was done to her? The next morning, as federal agents executed search warrants at Sterling and Morrison offices across 3 states, Emma Rodriguez stood in her Boston conference room, addressing a group of reporters, federal prosecutors, and former Sterling and Morrison clients. Ladies and gentlemen, 18 months ago, a brilliant young attorney named Madison Harper was destroyed by colleagues who stole her work, her money, and her reputation. Today, we're here to discuss how justice delayed is not justice denied. As she spoke, Emma felt the ghost of Madison Harper finally beginning to rest. The naive young woman who had trusted Victoria Sterling and James Morrison was gone forever. In her place stood someone harder, smarter, and infinitely more dangerous. The transformation was complete. Emma Rodriguez had built an empire from nothing, assembled an army of allies, and positioned herself to destroy everything her enemies had stolen. But the most satisfying part wasn't the money, the power, or even the approaching victory. It was the look of absolute terror in Victoria Sterling's eyes as she was led away in handcuffs, finally understanding that the woman she had destroyed had come back to reclaim everything, and take much more besides. The real reckoning was just beginning. 2 years after Madison Harper's disappearance, the legal world watched in stunned silence as the most spectacular corporate collapse in New York history unfolded live on national television. Emma Rodriguez stood behind a podium at the federal courthouse in Manhattan, flanked by U.S. Attorney Jennifer Walsh and FBI Director Michael Thompson. Camera crews from every major network captured the moment as she prepared to deliver testimony that would reshape the entire legal industry. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, Emma began, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had transformed herself from victim to victor. Today marks the end of one of the most extensive criminal conspiracies in corporate legal history. Behind her, a massive screen displayed the final tally. Sterling and Morrison Legal Group had been seized by federal authorities, its assets frozen, and its operations permanently shuttered. Victoria Sterling and James Morrison sat in separate detention centers, awaiting trial on 247 counts of racketeering, fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. But the numbers that mattered most to Emma were different. Rodriguez and Associates now controlled 60% of corporate legal work in the Northeast Corridor. Her firm employed 127 attorneys across 8 cities, with annual revenue exceeding $400 million. More importantly, 12 lawyers who had been destroyed by Sterling and Morrison's conspiracy now held senior partnerships in the most successful legal practice in American history. The investigation began 18 months ago, Emma continued, when federal authorities received evidence of systematic financial fraud affecting dozens of law firms and hundreds of clients. Today, I can reveal that this evidence was provided by someone with intimate knowledge of the conspiracy, someone who had been targeted for destruction but refused to stay silent. In the audience, Dr. Elena Rodriguez sat in the front row, tears streaming down her face as she finally understood the full scope of what had transpired. Beside her sat Kevin Walsh, Madison's former assistant, who had spent 2 years believing he had betrayed someone who had always treated him with kindness. The woman known as Madison Harper was more than just another victim of this conspiracy, Emma announced. She was the architect of its exposure and the builder of its replacement. The courtroom fell completely silent as Emma reached into her briefcase and withdrew a familiar object, Madison's Harvard Law Review diploma, recovered from a storage facility in Queens, where Victoria Sterling had hidden the remnants of her former life. My name is Emma Rodriguez, but 18 months ago, I was someone else entirely. I was Madison Harper, senior partner at Sterling and Associates, until the day I discovered that everything I had worked for was built on lies. The revelation sent shockwaves through the assembled crowd. Cameras zoomed in on Emma's face as she methodically removed her glasses and contact lenses, revealing the emerald green eyes that had once been Madison Harper's most distinctive feature. Victoria Sterling and James Morrison believed they had destroyed me completely. They stole my money, my career, my reputation, and my identity. They turned my colleagues against me through intimidation and fraud. They weaponized my charitable work to discredit my character. They made me disappear so thoroughly that even I believed Madison Harper was dead. She paused, letting the weight of her words settle over the room. But they made one critical error. They assumed that destroying someone's life would destroy their capacity for justice. Instead, it freed me from every constraint that had once limited my potential. U.S. Attorney Walsh stepped forward to address the technical aspects of the case. The evidence provided by Ms. Rodriguez, both as Madison Harper and as Emma Rodriguez, has resulted in the largest asset forfeiture in Department of Justice history. Sterling and Morrison's stolen funds, totaling over $800 million, will be returned to victims and defrauded clients. Furthermore, FBI Director Thompson added, "This investigation has exposed a network of corrupt practices affecting 17 law firms across 12 states. Federal task forces are currently executing search warrants in major cities nationwide." But Emma wasn't finished. She had one final revelation that would complete her transformation from victim to architect of justice. Victoria Sterling and James Morrison didn't just steal money, they stole dreams, careers, and lives. 12 brilliant attorneys were destroyed by their conspiracy. Hundreds of clients were defrauded. Thousands of cases were manipulated for personal profit. She gestured to the gallery where familiar faces sat watching the proceedings. Dr. Patricia Williams, Thomas Brennan, Rachel Donovan, and 9 other former victims who were now partners in Rodriguez and Associates. But today, those 12 destroyed attorneys control the largest legal practice in the Northeast. Those defrauded clients now receive representation from a firm that values integrity over profit. Those manipulated cases have been relitigated and won. Emma's voice grew stronger as she approached the climax of her statement. Victoria Sterling once told me that Madison Harper was naive because she believed people were fundamentally good. She was right about my naivete. But she was wrong about what would replace it. The courtroom was silent except for the clicking of camera shutters and the scratching of pens as reporters documented every word. I learned that when someone takes everything from you, they also remove every limitation you once accepted. Madison Harper was constrained by rules, by politeness, by the assumption that playing fair would result in fair treatment. Emma Rodriguez operates under no such illusions. She turned to look directly at the camera, broadcasting live to millions of viewers. To every person who has been betrayed by those they trusted, who has been destroyed by those who claim to care about them, who has been told they are powerless against systematic corruption, you are not as helpless as they want you to believe. Rodriguez and Associates isn't just a law firm. It's a model for how victims can become victors, how the destroyed can rebuild themselves stronger than before, how justice can be achieved when institutions fail. Quote, Emma paused for effect, knowing that her next words would define her legacy. We are currently accepting applications for our national expansion program. We seek attorneys who have been betrayed by corrupt firms, who understand the cost of institutional failure, who are ready to build something better than what destroyed them. The implications were staggering. Rodriguez and Associates wasn't just succeeding. It was actively recruiting from the ranks of the damaged and destroyed, creating an army of lawyers with personal motivation to expose corruption wherever they found it. But most importantly, Emma concluded, I want Victoria Sterling and James Morrison to understand something as they sit in their cells awaiting trial. You didn't destroy Madison Harper. You created Emma Rodriguez. And Emma Rodriguez owns everything you ever loved. She held up a final document. The deed to Victoria Sterling's Hampton estate, purchased by Rodriguez and Associates during the asset seizure auction. Your family home, Victoria, is now the site of our newest office. Your father's law library, James, has been donated to the legal aid clinic that serves the communities you exploited. Your yacht, your art collection, your private memberships, all now serve the people you spent your careers betraying. As Emma left the podium, reporters shouted questions about her plans, her motivations, her next targets, but she ignored them all, walking toward the gallery where a familiar figure waited. Kevin Walsh stood nervously, holding an envelope with trembling hands. Ms. Rodriguez, I wrote this letter 2 years ago, but never had the courage to send it. I wanted to apologize for signing those statements, for not believing in you, for... Emma took the letter, but didn't open it. Instead, she smiled with genuine warmth for the first time since her testimony began. Quote, Kevin, you did exactly what anyone would do when threatened by powerful people. You protected yourself and your family. I never blamed you for that. But I betrayed you. No, Kevin, you were victimized by the same people who victimized me. The difference is that you didn't have the resources to fight back then. Now you do. She handed him a business card with the Rodriguez and Associates logo. We're opening an office in Newark. We need someone who understands how these predators operate, someone who's seen their tactics firsthand. Interested in helping make sure this never happens to anyone else? Quote. 6 months later, Emma Rodriguez stood in the penthouse office of Rodriguez and Associates Manhattan headquarters, located in the building that had once housed Sterling and Morrison's corporate suite. The view overlooked Central Park, exactly like the office Madison Harper had once occupied, but the woman enjoying it was entirely different. The law firm had grown beyond even Emma's ambitious projections. With offices in 16 cities and partnerships with victim advocacy groups nationwide, Rodriguez and Associates had become more than a legal practice. It was a movement. Rachel Donovan entered carrying the morning's newspapers. The headlines told the story of Victoria Sterling's sentencing, 25 years in federal prison. James Morrison had received 30 years. Their criminal empire was permanently dismantled, their personal assets distributed to victims and charity. Any regrets? Rachel asked, settling into the chair across from Emma's desk. Emma considered the question seriously. Madison Harper would have felt sympathy for her former colleagues, would have questioned whether justice required such complete destruction. But Emma Rodriguez understood something Madison never could. Regrets about what? Exposing criminals? Building something better from the ruins of corruption? Giving 12 destroyed attorneys the chance to become more successful than they'd ever dreamed? She gestured toward the wall displaying framed photographs, images of Rodriguez and Associates offices across the country, each one built on the principle that integrity and excellence could coexist profitably. Victoria Sterling was right about one thing. Emma reflected. Madison Harper was naive. She believed that good intentions and hard work would be enough. She thought that playing by the rules would protect her from people who ignored those rules. And now? Emma's smile was sharp, predatory, and utterly satisfied. Now I understand that sometimes the only way to defeat monsters is to become something they can't comprehend, someone who takes everything they value and uses it to build something better. She picked up a stack of applications from attorneys seeking to join Rodriguez and Associates' continuing expansion. Each one told a story of betrayal, destruction, and the desire for redemption. They laughed when Madison Harper left with nothing, Emma said softly. But they're not laughing anymore. Because I didn't just come back owning everything they loved, I came back proving that everything they represented was weak, corrupt, and replaceable. As the sun set over Manhattan, Emma Rodriguez looked out at a legal landscape she had fundamentally transformed. Where corruption had once thrived, integrity now flourished. Where victims had once suffered in silence, they now found advocacy and justice. Madison Harper was truly dead. But her death had given birth to something far more powerful, proof that the destroyed could rise again, stronger and more dangerous than those who had tried to break them. The revolution was complete. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.